The Oregon Ducks clinch a spot in the Big Ten championship game with a hard-earned win at Wisconsin this weekend. We'll have our final thoughts on the entire Big Ten weekend right here. Locked on Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com and get started. So the Ducks clinch. Who will face them for the Big Ten championship game? Plus, our final drive on every game, every team from this past weekend. And IU gives Curt Cignetti a new contract after just 10 games. Speaking of 10, our top 10 Big Ten observations are coming up at the end. You'll want to hang around for that. But now, the Ducks, they clinched a spot of the Big Ten championship game. It'll be December 7th in Indianapolis. You can start making your plans now. And they will likely play the winner of this weekend's matchup between 5th-ranked Indiana and 2nd-ranked Ohio State. Can't wait for that one. That's going to be the big one. Yes, Penn State fans, there is a scenario or two in which Penn State can go ahead and make it into the Big Ten championship game against Oregon, but it's probably going to be Ohio State or Indiana before it's all said and done. Now, back to Saturday night. The Ducks had to earn their way into that one, didn't they? To get their 11th win of the season. Madison, Wisconsin, great atmosphere, great effort by the Badgers. But Oregon does win. They'll maintain their number one ranking and all that and remain undefeated. 16-13 winners at Wisconsin, and they did it without Jordan Birch again here on defense. And Tez Johnson, of course, their wide receiver's been out for a couple of weeks. So they were undermanned. And the Ducks had to face some unusual adversity. They had to come from behind on the road in the fourth quarter to get that 16-13 win. They haven't had to do that this year. And, they got off to a pretty good start because they were about to take a 10-0 lead. Then Dylan Gabriel threw that interception in the end zone there. And the Wisconsin defense served notice that they were ready for a 60-minute battle. In fact, the Badger defense didn't give up a touchdown in the entire first half. So take your hat off to them. That was a pretty good effort by them throughout the entire game. The problem with Wisconsin was their offense. And yes, we can give the Ducks defense some credit here, but Wisconsin started out by racking up 3 straight 3-and-outs and punting in the first quarter. Got nothing going whatsoever. Again, credit to the Oregon defense on that. And Oregon stuffed the Badgers running game, and Wisconsin was constantly in 3rd and long situations in the first quarter. That resulted in those 3 punts in the first 3 possessions. Plus, Brain Lock just wasn't very accurate most of the game. And the Badgers' passing attack, it actually cost him a couple scoring opportunities. He was 0 for his first 5 passes, by the way. Now, Wisconsin's opening drive of the second half, though, that looked a little bit more like the old-fashioned pound and ground running attack, a good old-fashioned Wisconsin football, including a successful 4th-and-1 conversion on the ground on a 16-play drive, 62 yards and almost 9 minutes. It was a beaut, except for one thing. Despite the success of Tawi Walker and Darian Dupree on the ground, Wisconsin has settled for a field goal instead of getting a touchdown. It was a 34-yarder, but nevertheless, with a little under 5 minutes to go in the third quarter, they were up by a score 13-6. Right? It was just that kind of game. By the time this game got into the fourth quarter, Camp Randall was rocking to jump around like they always do. Again, Oregon trailing 13-6 at this point. Unfamiliar territory. And the Badgers were thinking upset, to be honest. And the Badgers have had leads at the half against 3 top 25 teams this year. They just haven't been able to pull through. Meanwhile, the Ducks they're human. They had to be having some thoughts in the back of their head that their number one ranking and their first place standing in the Big Ten might be in jeopardy if they didn't get going here. But they did get going. They're a very confident group. And they answered with a little bit of their power game with Jordan James, who was fantastic again. He ended up scoring on an 11-yard touchdown there. And again, early in the fourth quarter, Oregon ties the game 13-13. And that was a pretty impressive drive of their own. Talked about Wisconsin's 16-play drive. Oregon had a 13-play drive for 81 yards and took about 6.5 minutes. Very good. Things looked like they were starting to happen a little bit. Then midway through the fourth quarter, Wisconsin looked like they got a first down. They looked like they were starting to put together another drive here. They ended up getting called for a chop block, which I thought was the wrong call. That was not a low enough block to be a chop block. So that negated that. It took a little bit of Wisconsin momentum that they had and took it away. So Oregon gets the ball back at a punt. They're across midfield, 6:49 to go. They get it down to a first and goal situation. By the way, at this point of the game, Oregon had 100 yards less than what they average for the season per game. So again, good job by the Wisconsin defense here. Ultimately, Oregon settles for a short 24-yard field goal at this point, but they take their lead 16-13. There's 2.5 minutes to go in the ball game at that point. Back to Jordan James for a minute. Just a workhorse on the night. 25 carries, 121 yards, and a touchdown on the day, the 11-yarder. Evan Stewart had 10 catches for 92 yards. Most of those were the first quarter. Just kept going. Now, moving forward, the Ducks have a bye week before their season finale against Washington, and that's all that stands in their way for an undefeated season. Their inaugural season in the Big Ten, coming down to one more game. They could be undefeated. They already know they're in the Big Ten championship game. They already know that there's got to be a 98% chance they're getting a playoff bid. Everything's looking good for the Oregon Ducks right now. Meanwhile, for the Badgers, Braden Locke only completed 12 of 28 passes. Again, he started out 0 for 5, only threw for 96 yards. Again, we'll give the Oregon defense some credit here, but also Braden Locke was really off the mark on his accuracy. He only averaged 3.4 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Tawi Walker had a strong game, 97 yards rushing on 20 attempts. Wisconsin's next game is at Nebraska. Nebraska's getting desperate. They're going down the stretch here with a losing streak, and they need one win to get into a bowl game. But nonetheless, hey, interesting, fun, entertaining, but low-scoring game on Saturday night between Oregon and Wisconsin. Duck fans, let's hear it from you. Let's light up the comments. Were you a little nervous? Let me know. Let's do some back and forth. You got 2 weeks now because you don't have a game coming up this weekend. You relax this weekend. Get ready for the big game at Washington to close out the regular season. But hit us up with the comments on YouTube. I mentioned at the top also, Indiana was on a bye week. We all know they've started out 10-0. They have a very good opportunity here if they beat Ohio State to get in that Big Ten championship game against Oregon. Curt Cignetti, in his first year, 10-0 after just 10 games, got a brand new contract. They basically doubled his money. Indiana likes him. He likes Indiana. 8 years, $8 million a year, plus an extra $1 million a year for retention bonus if he stays. So it's $9 million a year. Indiana stepping up like a big-time football program. They don't, because look, you can ask yourself this. Wow, a new contract after just 10 games. And keep this in mind. That just didn't come together overnight. So they had to be talking about this maybe, 6, 7 games in. They better lock this guy up. There were a lot of rumors out there already that he was going to get poached, that schools are going to fire their coaches and go hire this guy. Indiana doesn't want to lose him, so they stepped up. They redid the deal. He's the guy now. So that's a pretty good commitment by the school, the athletic department, from the top on down, and getting Curt Cignetti locked up long-term. All right. We always promise we talk every team, every game. A lot of games this past weekend we'll get to in just a minute. Do want to ask you a couple of things. If you don't mind paying attention, see the crawl if you're on video. That's our website, talkbig10.com. That's the number 10. All of our podcasts will go there. We'll file this one away under Oregon since we led with them today. We group them by schools so they're easy to find, or chronologically. But we also have links there if you want to go ahead and buy yourself some shirts from your favorite school, hats, T-shirts, pennants, coffee mugs. Christmas is coming. Do a little shopping right there online. Just click the link. You'll be good to go. And meanwhile, that's at talkbig10.com. I would like to ask you to subscribe here. It's free. It's always free. It does not require any personal information. If you can hit that subscribe button, that would be great. Thank you. We get about 500 or 600 new subscribers every month. We're very proud of that here. It never really lets down. Always new people checking us out every day. So if you could subscribe and then share, follow, like Locked On Big Ten, wherever you get your podcast. That way you get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. All right. So Ohio State and Penn State had a couple of nice blowout wins over the weekend. And we'll talk about that a little bit. Again, Nebraska is in panic mode. Another loss, another one-score loss. Still not bowl eligible. We'll take a trip around the Big Ten. Plus, we'll have our top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend. That's all coming up in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. 5 Hour Energy. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life, and it does take a lot of energy. No matter what you do, if you're sitting on the couch cheering all day, or if you're going out to the tailgates, whatever, just celebrating, it can take a lot out of you, which is why they've created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. The energy shot made just for super fans like us. The fans who are first in the parking lot, the last ones to leave, we see you. 5 Hour Energy. So they got this for you. You're going to love it. I've had 5 Hour Energy before. I like it when I got a long drive at night. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for that big tailgate or just ironing your jersey so you look good, the to-do list on game day is long. And that's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help keep you fueled throughout the season. So what's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5 Hour Energy. Available on 5hourenergy.com. Shipped nationwide. Well, thank you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day, especially you everydayers out there. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe on YouTube, share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And don't forget to peruse our website, talkbig10.com. All right, around the horn into Big Ten this weekend, some final thoughts as we put this weekend to bed. Always looking for your comments and opinions as well. Ohio State wins at Northwestern 31-7. No real big surprise there. Didn't cover, though. Northwestern got out to that 7-0 lead. The game was at Wrigley Field to accommodate the larger size while the larger crowd while their stadium's being built. Ohio State improving to 9-1, 6-1 in the Big Ten. Will Howard had a couple of touchdown passes. They both went to Carnell Tate. What's interesting about that is Carnell Tate is from Chicago. This game was in Chicago. Bit of a homecoming for him. Big deal there. Quinshon Judkins had a couple of 1-yard runs that he punched in as well. So that was all good. They were rolling. Jeremiah Smith had 4 catches for 100 yards. Looked like he had another nice catch in the end zone, but they went to replay and looked at it for a long, long time, said the ball touched the ground. He did have a 68-yard catch in that game as well. And on defense, Sonny Styles had 2 sacks there. Meanwhile, Northwestern, they've lost 3 of their last 4. They're at Michigan next week. Meanwhile, as I mentioned repeatedly, the Buckeyes have their top 5 matchup against Indiana next week. Michigan State was at Illinois. Home game for Illinois, no problem. They win a lot of their home games, right? 38-16, as a matter of fact, to improve to 7-3. Josh McCray ran for 3 touchdowns. Luke Altmaier threw for 2 touchdowns. Pat Bryant, this is a nice story. Pat Bryant caught 4 passes for a career-high 135 yards and a touchdown on his final home game. It was a 57-yard touchdown. It was the longest of his career. And the Illini not only snapped a 2-game skid, I mentioned the 7-3 record. They're back in the AP top 25 after missing for a couple of weeks. We got another Big Ten team in there, 5 Big Ten teams in the top 25. So that's very cool as well. Their 6-1 record marks the first time that they've won 6 home games since 2001. Seth Coleman had 2 sacks on the defensive side. Gabe Jacobs had 1.5. And the Spartans now have lost 6 out of 7. Aiden Childs threw 40 times without an interception. I think that's a win. I like that. He threw 2 touchdown passes. He was sacked 5 times, though. By the way, Michigan State hasn't had a sack in 5 games. They got to get better with defensive pressure up front. Meanwhile, Illinois closes out with Rutgers and Northwestern, 2 road games. But if they win them, that's 9 wins. They're going to a bowl game. If they win that, Brett Bielema has a 10-win season. Again, sneaky good Illinois because they fell out of the top 25. I think people forgot about them a little bit. They've been ranked throughout most of the year. They've been a pretty good football team this year. He once rattled off 3 straight double-digit win totals when he was the head coach at Wisconsin back in the day, 2010 to 2012. Penn State with the beatdown on Purdue. Penn State just getting through it, doing what they do. Purdue is in trouble. Penn State improving to 9-1 with a 49-10 win over the Boilers. The Boilers fall to 1-9. Drew Aller, 3 touchdown passes. Bo Perbulo threw a touchdown pass. And a guy that I mentioned this in our live broadcast on Saturday night, Tyler Warren does not get enough run for the Heisman. He needs to be a finalist. This is the tight end for Penn State. Had a 17-catch game earlier this year. He's thrown a touchdown. He's run for touchdowns. He's caught touchdowns. He had 8 catches for 127 yards this weekend. He ran for a touchdown, and he caught one here. Very versatile, maybe the most versatile player in the country. If the Heisman Trophy is about being given to the best college football player in the country, not just a quarterback award or whatever, he needs to be considered. Although I believe tight ends have won the Heisman only twice. That's what I'm going off memory off that. But the Nittany Lions cranked out 539 yards of offense. Just incredible. Now, Penn State is at Minnesota. That's the 3:30 CBS game. And then they host Maryland after that. By the way, Penn State should not sleep on Maryland and their secondary. They're an interception machine back there. But Drew Aller doesn't throw interceptions. So anyway, it looks like James Franklin should have himself another double-digit win total. Purdue, though, their schedule has been brutal down the stretch, ending an already bad season. Ohio State, then Penn State. Now they got Indiana still left. It's a tough stretch. Nebraska, speaking of a tough stretch, they go to USC this weekend. They lose 28-20, and both teams were in desperate need of a win. Both teams making some changes lately. For Nebraska, let's start with them. It's their 4th straight loss. You remember last year, Nebraska, you got to 5 wins. You needed that 6th win to get bowl eligible, and you lost your last 4. And all those one-score losses, got to 5-1 this year, 4 straight losses with a couple to go. Another one-score loss here. It's got to be agonizing for Nebraska Cornhusker fans. Lincoln Riley also making a switch at quarterback. He dropped Miller Moss in favor of Jaden Maeva, who came in and threw 3 touchdown passes and ran for another. Woody Marks, a huge day, 146 yards on 19 carries. Jalen Smith had an interception. Back to Nebraska for a minute. Dylan Raiola threw a touchdown, but he had 2 interceptions, including the game ender in the end zone on the last play. They got the new offensive coordinator they put in during the bye week with Dana Holgorsen. They don't get the win. One positive note for the Huskers in that game. Sierra Wright, he transferred from Southern Cal. He was at USC. Now he's at Nebraska, going against his old teammates. Had a 45-yard pick 6 and blocked a Trojan field goal attempt. He had a great game against his former team. USC plays rival UCLA next week, then hosts Notre Dame for the regular season finale. So that's pretty tough. Nebraska hosts Wisconsin, then they finish at Iowa, again, as it seeks one more win to get bowl eligible. Even Matt Rule mentioned it in his post-game press conference. It is important for Nebraska to get to a bowl this year and the program to move forward. Rutgers was at Maryland. Rutgers won 31-17. Congratulations to Rutgers. Their 6th win, 6-4. They are bowl eligible. Ethan Kaliak-Manis threw 2 touchdown passes. Kyle Monungai, tough kid, coming back from concussion protocol, 25 carries. They used him a lot, man. Put him right back in there. 97 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also eclipsed 1,000 yards for the season. Demir Miller had another big game, 2 big games in a row for him, 8 catches, 107 yards and a touchdown. Rutgers scored on 4 straight drives if you don't count the kneel down at the end of the first half. Jordan Thompson had an interception. Saquon Loyal had 13 tackles, 10 solo, and a tackle for loss. in that one. By the way, for Maryland, Billy Edwards threw for 335 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. At 4-6, here's the deal with the Terps. They got to go to Iowa and at Penn State for its last 2 games. Got to get a couple wins. Iowa and Penn State. That's a toughie in order to become bowl eligible. And let's not forget the Friday night game. I mean, it was a long weekend, right? UCLA goes up there to Washington. Washington, really good team at home, really struggling on the road. This one was at home. They won 31-19 to improve to 6-5. They're bowl eligible. UCLA, right there, 4 wins with a couple to go. And, earlier in the week, we had talked about on this podcast, and we thought Washington, what I said was, I'm not a fan of 2 quarterback systems, but I said, you know what? I think in this case, a little more Damon Williams. That's what I think. And actually, that's what happened. Now, here's how it's set up, though. He came in the second half and led to 3 second-half scoring drives, and then the Huskies get bowl eligible with the win. Jonah Coleman with 95 yards and 2 touchdowns as the Huskies won for the 20th time in a row at home. But they led 14-13 at the half, so it was a close game. But then Will Rogers comes out in the second half and throws 2 quick picks. So, boom, they make the change at quarterback and put Damon Williams in there, and they just started scoring. The Huskies defense, they sacked the Bruins' Ethan Garbers 6 times. Russell Davis II had 3 sacks, great performance. And for the Bruins, their 3-game winning streak is over. Again, they still have games against USC and then Fresno State in an effort to try and become bowl eligible. For the Huskies, their next one, as we mentioned earlier, if you did the math, they got to buy, and then their season finale against number 1 Oregon. No word yet from Coach Fish if he's going to go, which way he's going to go, Rogers or Williams at starting quarterback. We'll wait. UCLA, by the way, also Carson Switzer, 17 tackles. Wanted to mention that too. He's all over the field. Good defensive player there. All right. You know what I always like to do here? We do this every Monday. I watch everything. So that's my top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend. I will share those with you in 1 minute. See if mine match yours here on Lockdown Big Ten. FanDuel makes watching games even more fun than they already are. Tackle the rest of the NFL action this year with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. And you get a hunch in the middle of the game. You want to look at a score, want to look up a stat, whatever it is. It's all right there at the same place that you put your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com and join today. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. It's at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Monday Night Football. I like the the Texans at the Cowboys. Houston is a 7-point favorite. I absolutely like them to cover that. No problem at all. And I like the over. It's kind of a low number, 41.5. So give me the Texans Cowboys on the over and give me the Texans at -7. That's at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, official partner of the NFL. And if you want to go to a game, you need a ticket, go to Game Time, the app, get it downloaded on your phone or your device. Any ticket you need, whether it's a Big Ten football game, NFL football game, or even if it's not a sporting event like a concert or a comedy show, get the Game Time app. If your event requires a ticket, you can get it with Game Time. And it's so easy to use. No surprise pricing at the end. It's all right there. Very easy to follow. I like the seat views right there on your phone. You can see the panoramic view from the seat in the app of the ticket that you're about to buy. And Game Time has the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% the difference. Check it out. Take all the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. All right, it is time for my top 10 Big Ten observations of the weekend. I'm going to be honest, I had to condense a few of these, group them together. I know I left somebody else off. There was a lot of really cool stuff going on over the weekend. So let's put it up here. We'll go full screen if you're audio only, and I'll try to describe this as possible. I just mentioned one of them, UCLA's Carson Schlesinger, who had 2 interceptions 2 games ago. He had 17 tackles versus Washington. And I should have put this in print. I thought of it. I almost forgot it. Russell Davis II with his 3 sacks for Washington in that game. I want to mention him as well. That's a great effort. I love the sack machine. Sacks and interceptions always get my attention over the weekend. Rutgers' Demir Miller. Again, I think we mentioned him in last week's top 10. Another big game, 8 catches, 107 yards, and a touchdown versus the Terps. Also wanted to mention at number 8, Rutgers, Kyle Monangai. Again, coming up a concussion and then going in there and just putting your head down and running 25 times. You got to mention him. 97 yards and 2 touchdowns, a lot of hard work. He also eclipsed 1,000 yards for the season. He was the Big Ten's leading rusher last year. So, tough kid, good runner. Meanwhile, speaking of runners, USC's Woody Marks, huge game against Nebraska, 146 yards on just 19 carries, really torched him pretty good. Wanted to give him a shout out here this week as well. At number 6, Illinois, Pat Bryant, his final home game, catching 4 passes for the career high, 135 yards. Got a touchdown. It was a 57-yarder. That was his longest of his career. I believe that was Luke Altmaier's longest touchdown pass of his career as well. And as long as we're talking about Illinois, there's more to mention here. How about Josh McCray running for 3 touchdowns against Michigan State? And congratulations to Illinois getting back into the AP top 25. Good job by them. Ohio State's Cardell Tate, the 2 touchdown catches from Will Howard versus Northwestern. I mentioned at the top, he's a Chicago native. This game was at Wrigley Field, coming back to take out Northwestern, a homecoming for him, so to speak. And that was a really special, cool story if you follow that over the weekend. What else we got? Jordan James. Yeah. Just a workhorse night against that Wisconsin defense, and still was able to crack 25 carries for 121 yards and a touchdown. Good job by him. And the other story, and this was in a losing cause. This may be the highest ranking ever for a player on a losing team, but Sierra Wright of Nebraska played at USC last year, transferred to Nebraska, and against his former team, the 45-yard pick 6 and the block field goal attempt, I thought was phenomenal. Love the stories within the story, right? And then number 1, again, why does this guy not get more Heisman hype? We're going to hype him up for Penn State. Tight end Tyler Warren ran for a touchdown and caught a touchdown. He does it all. I'm surprised he didn't throw for a touchdown. He's done that before too. 8 catches, 127 yards. By the way, the Nittany Lions, 539 yards of offense this weekend. Pretty impressive on the day. All right. Those are my top 10 Big Ten observations. What are yours? Did I leave somebody off? Let me know. Hit me up with the comments. Always looking for you guys there. Many ways to interact with this podcast, of course, Twitter, X, @TalkBig10. Comments here on YouTube are fantastic. It really kind of gets things churning up and makes more people aware of us if you do that. And also, don't forget our website, talkbig10.com, where our podcasts and merchandise opportunities are available for you there. All right, week 12 is done. We start moving forward. We're going to talk about what's at stake between the Indiana and Ohio State game in tomorrow's podcast, plus Tuesday tweets. Can't wait till you join us for that. Thanks for joining us here today. I'm Craig Sheeman for Locked On Big Ten. Talk to you next time.